Anything you could do, I heard it done before, better, but I could do you in 36 positions. And then you like the Wu-Tang debut now, who remain true to the game. Damn shame it wasn't you. Fools lay claim to fly rhymes, but I terrorize airlines. My mind's a porcelain Glock 7, slipping through the metal detector, ready to wet you like baptism. It's rap pugilism when I be placing 208 bones in one zone with microphones. I'm like the Blade Runner hunting clones. Shimon, I beat it like one glove in a bad nose job with more breathing techniques than Lamar's. Raz still be drinking more liquor brews and continues the liquidation to cruise with a drunken technique like Shundi's Kung Fu and Virtual Fighter 2. See me, son, I'm the one sporting Dolce & Gabbana. Peeling this sucker's wig back like cradle cap. You ain't no cap pillar for real, and for who you desire to kill, you need more God than Zilla. I break some off like acrylic nails. Test me, but you appear to be Presley like Priscilla. And still malicious disses, but this is 10% diss, 90% skill. So curses, you're foiled again like Hershey's Kisses. They so-called vicious, although how you gonna be a menace when it ain't no men in it? Oh, they reminiscences. Now in a new year, a new fear, and I'm nuclear. Let's play a friendly game of who can ruin whose career.
3, 2, 1, action.
Welcome to the legendary Patchwerk Studios. Yeah, it's here. And I've been here a while. Long time. I remember when it first started. Me and Curtis, OutKast, BJ, everybody was all hands on deck because we was trying to do something major and monumental. Something that can really stand the test of time and really bring people together. And I think that was the biggest thing with Patchwerk. There was a lot of work involved, but we came from the Patch. That's where the name comes from. A small neighborhood in Carson, California is where we were family, we was brothers, and we wanted to do something, and this is what we did together. So
Patchwerk Recording started in 93. Patchwerk Recording Studios started in 95. Me, Bob, and Raz are all from the Patch, which is the Cabbage Patch. CPG is what we call it, Cabbage Patch Gangsters. Which is in Carson, California. They're bloods in our neighborhood. Bob has an older brother, Paris, man, he's been in jail, seems like the whole time. I know for the whole time we've had the studio because he's never seen it. So he may have been in jail now for about 27, 28 years or so. But Bob is 1 year older than me. He was born in 71 with my sister. I was born in 72. But me and Bob both have older brothers that are the same age. So my older brother and Bob's brother, they ran together. They grew up together. They hung out. They was in the same crew, same clique or whatever. And me and Bob, we've been going to the same kindergarten, elementary, junior high, and high school. Our relationship probably started when we were playing at the park, playing t-ball together. And so that's from the age of about 7 years old until now. We're about 48. We didn't meet Raz until I met Raz. Raz didn't go to our elementary. He came to our junior high school, Carnegie Junior High School. And really the way we forged a relationship was because I remember one time we had a track meet and Raz was probably about the same size, about 5'7" or whatever he is, 5'8". And I was probably about 6'1", 6'2" at the time. And that little joker probably beat me in the high jump. And so his respect for me was gained because his little ass was jumping over that high bar. And so basically that's kind of how he got in the clique or whatever. We were, back then it wasn't even doing music. So it was about athletics, academics or gangbanging. And so he folded into our niche by being athletic, you know what I mean? And got to know him and realized he lived around the corner. And that was that. And Raz really he was known for drawing. He can draw his ass off and he could dance. So he was in the dance crew. And that's what I knew him for, and then we shared a love for music. And so, we just started inviting him over when we would be playing dominoes and all this stuff. And so, fast forward to, Bob, the funny thing about him, playing football, he had left the Patch and moved to Vallejo at one point for a couple of years in the Bay Area. And then he came back to go to high school in the 9th grade. And 10th grade year, he played JV, didn't get to play. But going into his senior year, Bob became the #1 rated lineman in the nation. He was the best in the nation. He could have went anywhere he wanted to. He was a 4.0 student. And he went to Stanford. And to get to the music while he was in school, then I got a football scholarship to Michigan State. And I still coming home, we would kick it with the homies. Whenever we came home, we either be playing dominoes at my house or Raz's house or shooting dice at Bob's house. That's what we was doing. And we was rotating. And I found out Raz could rap. And Bob ended up getting drafted by the Falcons and had a shitload of money, man. He was the highest paid lineman in NFL history on 3 different occasions. So he had a shitload of money and was like 22, 23 years old. And I don't know, in the conversation I found out that he was buying equipment and putting it in the house. And Bob kind of likes to mess around with stuff and he may not see the idea all the way through. And I told him he should send the equipment to Raz because he's dope. And that's kind of how we got started, man. That's a long story, but that's how we got started. We naively thought, I always tell people that being from Carson is weird. You got to be there. I personally don't think we should have any gangsters because everyone that lives there has 2 parents and they live in a $500,000, $600,000 house. It's crazy. But anyway, we do have our little gangs or whatever. But growing up there, I think the common thing from people from there is that, you got both parents in the home and everybody on your block is married. And it's real stable, and your parents kind of teach you that you can do anything that you want to do. Now, that's just a saying. So typically, the mom is encouraging you and telling you to dream and you can do what you want to do. But then the dad is following up that statement by demonstrating and telling you, but yeah, you got to work for it and you got to practice for it. So we literally came out of that place thinking that we can do whatever we wanted to do. We wanted to play football, and we got scholarships to go to college, which D1 colleges. And then, one of the other homies wanted to play and he went pro, got drafted first round. And then one of the other homies believed he can rap and he became one of the dopest artists ever. So we just thought that we can do anything. And if it was hard, we just figured we needed to work at it. So we thought that, the first thing was we just thought that we can record a record and Raz would get a deal. That's what we heard. Go get a record deal. So we was like, he's dope. He's incredible. We like him. Make a song and somebody assign him. And we did that and nobody liked him. And we still believed in him. And so then we created a record label and we put out a project. We put out a single with a B-side. And then it created a bidding war with every single label that you can imagine. And we ended up signing with Priority. And then when we put out the first album, back then they had big budgets and we realized that we had spent over $200,000 on production and recording. And so us being young and dumb and naive, then we figured, well, we should just do our own studio. So that's how the studio got here.
Bob was about to graduate when we was in the 10th, and through Curtis, Bob started picking me up going to school. And pick me up, and that's where it really started. So Bob would pick me up and pick Bertie Kurt up, and then we'd go to school. This one time, I think we were at Curtis's house, maybe. But I think we might have been in my house. And so I decided I had this demo. I had like 4 or 5 songs, thanks to DJ Battlecat and Wino, who produced for Coolio and Domino Theory and whatever. So I had been working on my music. I didn't tell my friends what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. I was working on music. And Curtis has always been one of the most critical hip hop heads. He's just critical, like he's a connoisseur. Some people are consumers, they just buy whatever. They buy what's popular. Curtis was like me. He just studied lyrics. He the whole record. And so I really wanted his opinion, but I didn't want a biased opinion. So one way or another, I didn't want some people knowing it was me and like it because it was me or shit on it because it was me. And so there were probably about 5 or 6 of us playing dominoes. Niggas always had music playing. I took somebody's tape out and I put my tape in. And then niggas was like, who you playing? I was like, oh, just some new nigga. Some new nigga, I think he's from New York. I lied. I'm like, yeah, I think some new nigga. I played it, and then niggas didn't say turn that shit off, it's whack. By the second song, Kurt was like, yo, who's this nigga, man? This nigga kind of dope. This nigga dope. I'm like, I don't know, man. I forgot his name. Like some New York nigga, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. By the fourth song, the nigga said, God damn it, whoever this nigga is the hardest nigga, period. Nigga, this nigga hard. And I said, it's me. And he said, bitch, I ain't you. Because you know he the only nigga that can call me bitch. Like, niggas don't really like you call him a bitch, but that's how he talks. He's like, bitch, that ain't you. I was like, nigga, that's me on everything. I was listening to the voice. And then the nigga teared up and he said, like a little bit, he said, John, that's you? And I was like, yeah. And he said, my friend is the greatest rapper I ever heard. And that was the beginning. My friend, who I knew was a connoisseur, believed in me. And the rest of the journey would go on to create Patchworks, but it starts from there, period. That's how this shit starts. It's an idea, it's an inception, and then it becomes physical.
Me and Bob went to school together, and Bob was Stanford. Bob was a football player, and he was, gonna be in the draft. Like, everybody knew he was gonna go pro. And there was a few guys, a couple of my partners, that I used to hang with all the football players in school. My roommates was always, well, not always, but football players. So a few of the guys was gonna go get drafted. And we were just talking about business because I wanted to be in real estate. Curtis came down, we were still in the process of like building a studio. But me and Curtis were still talking when he was in Michigan. Talking, emailing, like working on the business plan, the marketing plan, the whole strategy of how we were gonna make this a success, not just hip hop. Like, a lot of people just open up studios, especially athletes, and they don't really take it seriously. Us being in school and we not playing football, we not, we ain't got millions of dollars. So we gotta make something that's for real, that's gonna have longevity, a real business. But Bob, he wasn't thinking like that. I think Bob was just thinking, for fun, like he said, like Curtis was saying, he had some of his partners just, in the building doing whatever. You know what I mean? They was, one of his partners used to do the cell phones, where you burn the cell phones and beepers and all of that stuff, where you don't have to pay the bills. He was selling cell phones out of there, and another, Lionel was doing cars, washing cars in the parking lot, all that type of stuff. So one thing that we said, me and Curtis, when we start, we're gonna cut all that out. This ain't finna be no hangout. It's not finna be no clubhouse. It's gonna be a real business. And we wrote that into the business plan. And I still got the original marketing plan, like step by step, like this is how we're gonna run it. And we're gonna, stand on that. Even with Bob, to the point we would be arguing with Bob because he would wanna come and smoke weed with his football players, his homies, and bring girls. And we literally have to be like, no, dude, you can't trap it out. Like, we trying to run a business, no commingling of funds. Bob was using the credit card for whatever he wanted to, the Patchwork credit card, all that type of stuff was going on. But eventually Bob, had to respect it, and he would back off, say, all right, even though he would do it sometimes. But that, I think, is one of the reasons why Patchwork is still here 25 years later versus other studios, because from the very beginning, we set out for the studio to be ran like that. We say if somebody came to work the front desk, to be a manager or whatever, who it is, all we have to do is hit them with the manual, say, boom, here it is. It's easy. It's not rocket science. The engineer got to learn this stuff, but somebody just working here, this is what you do. When you get to work, the first thing you do is this, A, B, C, D. Turn off the alarm, go check this, make sure that whatever it is you're supposed to do, make sure that the reports, I don't know how y'all do it now, but back then, everything was handwritten, the studio sessions, make sure that the reels was put back, make sure the room is locked up, make sure it's toilet paper, all those little things, anybody could come sit at that desk and we can give you this operating manual, just like McDonald's. Dude quit, somebody else can come in here. First thing you do in the morning, you come in, turn the grease on, then you do this, boom, 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 A, B, C, D. Make it simple, because we used to use that analogy too. Like, we want the customer's experience to be the same. If they came here and they came here 5 years later, we want that experience to be the same. It's like if you go to McDonald's here or New York or London, the fries gonna taste the same. the filet of fish, all of that's gonna be the same. The amount of tartar sauce they put on it, we wanted the studio to run like that. So people would say, hey, this is just not no, football players or just no rap studio. It's professional. We get our reports, we get our bill, here's what it costs, we send you out the rate sheets, when we book you, when you come, your time, it ain't gonna be, you gotta wait an hour, 2 hours. We come and, all of those things that I'm sure how Curtis still has it set up and run. That was our, intention from the very beginning, and we set out to say that, because like Curtis was like, he ain't from here, I ain't from here. He's like, I don't wanna just come to Atlanta, just to hang out and have a business that lasts for a couple years. Just think Curtis has been here 20-something, 25 years now. This is all he ever did.
I've been working with Patchwork since, I guess, day one. 25 years we've been working with Curtis and, at the time, Bob and Mike. So we've known these guys as long as we've been making music in Atlanta on a real, like, kind of professional, steady basis. Before Patchwork's open, I think there was, I can't even remember the name of the studio now. Country, oh sheesh. It was probably like 5 studios, but they were like owned by rock guys. And it was one on Chester Bridge, and I can't think of the name of it to save my life. I just remember Brendan O'Brien, who did B-52s and stuff. They were there all the time. And you had Bosstown, which is, where we were working the most. That was owned by Bobby Brown at the time. It's now Stank On You. But those were studios that were owned by other people, and we didn't have the access to them. And because Patchwork was new, we kind of got in on the ground floor and kind of had like a open door policy for us. Like we always had room here. So it was a great thing for us, because I think the studios were built for like bigger R&B. They were built for like bigger productions. And at the time, hip hop wasn't like a big thing in Atlanta. It was just starting to bubble. And it felt like a rap studio for us. It felt like a hip hop studio, because the people in it were like our age. Like Bob Whitfield played for the Falcons, so we knew who he was culturally. The engineers were young. Like, I went to high school. Well, I lived next door to Jarvis when I would go to my aunt's house. It was a community. It felt like more community based.
The studio scene was basically just regular. You would find spots here and there that had good vibes, right? But they never had the look of a real studio. Now, you had a lot of studios around the city, but their vibes weren't as strong as Patchwork. You know what I'm saying to you? There's a, like I said earlier, there's a dynamic between grand and vibe, right? Studios, at the end of the day, has nothing to do with grand, right? It's everything about the vibe, but you gotta have the right equipment too. At the same time, it's a weird double-edged sword. Gotta have the right equipment, gotta have the right engineer, but your vibe gotta be just as good as both of those things before, right? And the vibe of Patchwork had all that. And other studios, they had other things. I remember studios being very sterile. Like, they would have all the first two, but no vibe, no energy to them, man. And it'd be just like, no vibe. Like, I would sit in studios sometime, man, and just be like, man, what the?
Any studio that was our competition had a 2-inch reel. So our push this entire time was, we need to move from this 8-at setup that we've got that's almost obsolete to, we need a 2-inch reel in this studio, because if we can get a 2-inch reel in here, we can try to woo some of these other clients from these other studios. There was, LaFace had a studio, Dallas had a studio, Silent Sound Studios was right up the street. So there were a number. Purple Dragon was another studio that was around at that time. And all of these were sort of larger, more well-known studios for Atlanta recording artists. Now, we had, at this time, we had some artists, by this time, we had some artists that were coming through, but we didn't have any artists by the magnitude of OutKast that had come through the studio yet. And I don't know what Curtis did. I just remember that he cut some sort of sweet deal with LaFace that got them
that got OutKast to come to our spot. I don't know if it was a face of organized noise, but something he did, he's got the gift of gab. So whatever he did, it worked. And he was able to get OutKast there.
I found out that the Dungeon family, which was Rico and them, were big Falcon fans. And we invited them to, and then Dee was kind of management, so it kind of went through Dee. And I asked them, did they want to go to the game? And she was like, sure. And I was like, how many tickets you need? And she was probably like 23. And so she wanted to come by and pick up the tickets. And I was like, nah, anybody that want to go to the game got to come to the studio. And then we're going to do a tour, and then they can get a ticket to the game. So what ended up happening, we were so close to the dome, about 2.5 miles, everybody met up here, and then we carpooled. So some people left their cars here. So we went to the game. We was in the first 2 rows. It was lit, and then we came back after the game, and they started working. And that's kind of how it happened. And then, at that game, everybody was there. So all the organized noise, all the OutKast, Goody Mob, probably TLC, and a bunch of other people. And, we, throughout the years, everybody in the music industry was our guest at the game. You know what I mean? People do that now where they have suites and they invite people, but we unwittingly was doing that when we started. Like, hey, you want to go to a game? Sure, you know what I mean? So we would build relationships at the game and then come back and work. And, it worked.
Most of this AT Aliens album was recorded in Patchwork. And the reason why we came to Patchwork was because there was really no place in Atlanta to record.
The original facility, I remember, Patchwork, it was in a house on the corner of the street from where this studio is now, at the top of Hemp Hill, and the corner of Hemp Hill and 10th Street. And you walk into this house, and it was like from the outside, it was just it looked like a 2-level house. And you walk in, and it was, I want to say it's purple. Yeah, I feel like it was purple, which I don't know why it was purple, but it had a vibe. And you walk in, you can go past the reception, go all the way down the hall to the studio, which is probably like past a lounge, an office, another office, bathroom, vocal booth, into the main room. And that main room was what is now the 955 room here at Patchwork. And that's where we made Parental Advisory's whole last album, I think. My Life Entertainment. No, we made that here too. But we made 2 albums there. We did OutKast, we did Dungeon Family stuff, we did Youngbloods, T.I. Yeah, man, we worked in that studio.
The house was dope. The house was dope because obviously it was a house, so it's a different feeling, it's a warmer feeling, being that it was just a big ass house, makeshift house, I guess, So you had downstairs, you had, boom, you walk in the door, you had immediately you had like the desk, lobby, area with a couch right next to the desk, and the couch was like the therapy couch, Of course, you had the pool room, which was like the lounge, was in the front, and in the back you had kitchen, studio was all the way to the back. You had like a little smaller lounge. I wouldn't even call it a lounge area, across from the studio, And then upstairs was pretty small. Upstairs you just had, I believe, like 2 offices. I believe it was just 2 offices, yeah. Bob had an office, and then BJ had an office, and then there was a smaller room in the back that I used to sit at. And I worked records at College Radio.
A pretty standard 2-story building with a glass front window, which I remember got shattered when Patchwork got raided a long time ago for some crazy stuff. Basically, the studio was all different colors. There was a lot of purple furniture and like multicolor furniture in the main areas and in the kitchen area. The upstairs area was dedicated to the label, and that's where BJ had his office. Bob had an office up there, and then we had an area with like where we had the interns and just the shared activities for the label. Downstairs was the studio area. So the studio was in the very back.
And then behind, one of the things we made a mistake is to get to our tape room, you had to walk through the vocal booth to get to where the 2-inch machine was. But we dealt with it and we made it do what it do.
It was interesting because it was the first time I had been in like a real recording studio, especially where, you know, this is where OutKast had recorded at the time, Dungeon Family, LaFace Projects. So, but it was a house, and I thought it was unique how each room of the house was converted to an office. You know, one of the back rooms was like a fulfillment center where it's like shipping and, you know, all the promotional stuff. But I remember that house being very integral once I got connected, because I spent a lot of time, you know, at the time I was doing work for Patchwork. They had a label, and OutKast, Mean Green, and Voodoo were artists that were signed to the label. And so I was there a lot, and I used to always see and experience like this little tiny little home that just had all this energy, you know, so it was a cool experience.
I'm gonna tell you, the first thing that comes to my mind is purple walls, I think. I don't know why I'm seeing purple walls, if I remember correctly. Right. Black leather lounge, like sofas and everything, you know what I'm saying?
The pool table, remember the pool table?
I'm trying to remember the pool table.
Out there in the area.
And I gotta say, man, this is just, it's been so long, man. This is the only things that stick in my head. I just remember purple walls, if I'm correct. I remember black leather furniture, you know what I'm saying? So it's back in them good old days, man, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Remember we recorded, we took the mic outside of the studio?
And we was sounds.
Yeah, sounds. I think that's when we were doing Shake 'em Out. Kurt let us take the damn mic outside.
The studio itself, man, had such a vibe because it was small in comparison to most studios of that caliber. You get what I'm saying to you? It had such a great vibe, and I think that what people don't get is it's not really about how the studio looks, but it's really about the equipment, the engineers, and the vibe of the studio. And Patchwork had that vibe that if you wanted to work, you could work, right? You weren't worried about people coming in your sessions. There's a lot of, you know, back then we had a lot of studio etiquette, right? You would sit in the studio all day. Nobody would come in your session. They would just assume that someone was back there, so they wouldn't just come back there, right? The studio itself, man, the smells, you know the smells I'm talking about. The smells were just like, you know, fumigating throughout the studio, man. It was just like this vibe, and across the street they had the pizza spot, and then, you know, you get hungry, you go get the pizza. I'm a fat guy, something. I'm remembering food, you know what I mean? So, you know, it was just a great vibe. You stand outside, sit out, talk shit, whatever you're gonna do, and then go back in the session. You know what I'm saying to you? It was just a kind of a vibe of music.
To me, what personifies that sound of 995 McMillan is elevators. Whenever I hear that song, I always think, man, that's the original Patchwork sound. The 2-inch reels, the ceilings was low. It wasn't nothing like this, obviously, but it did create a hip hop sound. And I remember a lot of artists would say that. I remember talking to Pimp C, like how he really loved The Room, because he was like, he didn't like all of that fancy, as he was calling it, you know, a kind of a gritty sound you would get out of there. You know, it was warm, but it was still had the feeling like, you know, like it was some hip hop shit, not produced in some big, you know, high-end studio.
Patchwork has always did grade A service, and I think a lot of studios kind of patterned themselves after that mantra, that you become who you are. And I remember from that moment, just at that studio, I always knew what studios were supposed to look like, right? And we had other studios around the city, but Patchwork was always that one staple that I know that everybody went to, whether it was me or Jim Crow or Black Market or OutKast, Organized Noise, and the list goes on and on, Tupac. Everybody came to Patchwork for that quality sound. And ever since the 90s, it's been A1. I can't remember one time I ever recorded in any one of these studios, the one up the street and this studio here, even in the 9,000 room, where the sound and engineers 1A1. And it's just been a very outstanding blessing to be a part of the history of this studio.
Bob was leasing that building, and we did all of those improvements, and the dude was playing games. So every year we would sign a 12-month lease, and then, you know, say if we signed it in January, and in November we only had a month left. So we would go to him and say, we want to buy the building, and then he would play games and say it's not for sale. We sign a new lease in January, he'll come to us in February and say, I want to sell it. Here's the sale price, plus I want 10 months worth of lease. You know what I mean? That's what he was playing. So we kept trying to buy when we didn't have nothing, so we can just pay whatever, $400,000 for the building. He wanted the $400,000 and 11 months worth of rent, and that kept happening. And he sold the building without telling us to Georgia Tech, and he never was going to tell us. I mean, we had a storm, and it knocked our awning down, so I called him to tell him to fix it, and that's when he told me he didn't own the building anymore. And I took a pause. I said, what you mean? And he was like, yeah, I sold it. I said, did you tell Bob? He said, no, I'm telling you now. And so I had to tell Bob that, you know, he didn't own the building, and we only had like 3 or 4 months left on the lease, and we had to get out. And he told them that, hey, it's best not to let these guys know. They kind of like some hip hop rappers. They may damage the building. So we never know. He sold it. It wasn't like it was no for sale sign. Nobody ever came and toured the facility or nothing. He just sold the shit, and we was asked out. And it wasn't until they came over after they own it. I remember it was about 6 people came over, and we had to give them a tour, and they met us, and they was like, you guys aren't bad at all. And it was like, you know what? We won't be ready for this shit till about another 6 or 8 months. You guys could stay here and just pay us the rent. And then at that time, so that gave us a few more months to find this facility and get out. But that was the dirty part. You know what I mean? You know, we probably should have had a first right of refusal in our contract, that if we were leasing or renting, that if he did want to sell it, he'd have to give us notice and give us an option to buy it. That motherfucker just sold it. He was dirty, and he was gone.
I mean, the move, I think, was bittersweet for people that had been involved from the beginning. I mean, obviously it was out of necessity, but because the way that the old building was structured with like the label and, you know, and on one floor and like the studio on the other, I think that obviously changed a lot, which, I mean, I feel like in the new space, more businesses and more facets of what Patchwork is have been able to like get pushed out. But I mean, there was a lot of history in the physical sense in terms of like what that building was. I think some of the furniture moved over. I think we kept like the purple velvet furniture, which I think is hopefully gone now. I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, it was bittersweet moving into a space that was bigger with more opportunities for like additional rooms. Obviously, you know, increases the capacity for like what the studio could put out. But still, I mean, just the fact that so many incredible pieces of music were created in a space that's now leveled and it's a parking lot or whatever it is. I mean, it's very interesting. But I mean, you do have those tangible musical outputs from it. So I don't know. I have like my 995 memories and then like the memories of this studio. So
yeah, man, I remember you know, when they purchased this new building down here, you know, and coming up the street and seeing the building, and it was funny because the back with Studio 9000, you know, that was the second phase, right? So they did the front, was working on the front, and in the back it was just like, yo, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do. So it was this empty space, this empty warehouse space looking, you know, and this is what we're gonna do. I remember Josh used to park his car back there, like one of the engineers, you know.
To actually build a studio of this size and this magnitude in this small space in this area had to be some type of genius foreseeing in the future of what was coming to invest in that. They're still businessmen.
I remember the construction, like just watching Curtis and Mike and everybody just being so proud of all that was going to be because they saw the vision of it, right? They had this big ass warehouse that they had bought, and they had roped it off and sketched it out to be this studio. Like I remember it from sketches to tape on the floor to what it is now. And what I remember the most is how proud Curtis was of this big ass board. Like it was just like it is that moment where you hear like when he opened the door, like, yo, it's here. You know, it's a big deal, and it still is. It's like Curtis in general takes real pride in not just the service, not just the building, not just the people, the equipment, the atmosphere, the comfortability and the ability to be able to be creative in here. And I think that board he knew was impressive to people who came from out of town and was like, it's a real studio now, as opposed to it's a cool spot where rappers hang.
So to me, just seeing like that thing go from this is what's gonna happen to the tape outlining everything on the floor to boom, construction starting to of course the 9,000 board, first studio on this side of the country, the southeast or whatever, to have this board, $1 million. To me, it was like, what the hell, $1 million for a board? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but of course, now that position is so that people had less of a reason to leave, you know? So now people, instead of flying to LA, New York, Miami to mix records, so you could stay here, and now you have more people actually coming here now as well. You know what I'm saying? So you had more the higher caliber of artists, more, you know, established artists coming to Atlanta to work now too.
I remember when they bought the big board. I remember when they bought the 9,000. It was the only 9,000 in the city. I remember. Like, that was the selling point of the studio. Right? Like, yo, man, they got the 9,000 board, man. This studio looked like the big studios out west or in New York. At the time, people don't think about it now because Atlanta is Atlanta now. But at one point, Atlanta was not what it is now. It wasn't that long ago. There wasn't a lot of studios. There was no studio in Atlanta that had a 9,000 board, right? There's no studio in Atlanta that looked like this either. This studio looked and is state-of-the-art, engineer, sound quality, the way it looks. Man, when I walked in the studio the first time, I was like, yo, what is this? This is like a studio in New York, LA. Kind of reminds you of Larrabee. You know, I don't know if these young cats know what that is. That's where Michael Jackson recorded all the big ones. But anyway.
Yes, man. I remember the boards, man. Hey, that what I knew that the money was good through this thing, man. You know what I'm saying? The boards, the new rooms. You know what I mean? But when that man went and got that big boy guy in that big boy room, I said, hey man, showing out here, man. Yeah, man. You know what I mean? But it makes sense, man. It made plenty of sense, man. You know what I mean? This is the home, this is Atlanta, Georgia, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this is Atlanta, Georgia Patchwork. You feel what I'm saying? From the rap scene, streets, whatever. It made sense, man. You know what I'm saying? I was happy to see what was going on, cause that when I started understanding the different prices of these boards too. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing, man. You know what I'm saying? And this room we sit in right now, it like this is the big room to me.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? Then when we started, you know what I'm saying? When we came in here, we like, boy, we done made it. This the big boy stuff. You know what I'm saying? So this forever be the big room to me, man. You know what I mean?
This is where we come from, you know what I mean? Like my first studio, even in Memphis, House of Blues, coming up, like this is the essential piece that you had to have, and still a centerpiece to this day. You know what I mean? I remember a lot of different tape on this board with Leslie and my name on it, or snare, hi-hat, kick, drum, bass, keys, chords, you know, and you putting each sound individually and being able to EQ, it just takes your sound to a completely different level. And the guys who still are able to use this and utilize this centerpiece, that's where that sound is so consistent. When you listen to, you know, JDs and the Diddies and the Dre's and the Drummer Boys and, you know, whoever it is, this is the centerpiece that's backing that sound.
The other thing that Patchwork offers is, as a venue, it's a space where you can have like seminars and classes where young people trying to get into the industry can come and learn from people who have been in it and have experience in it. And I don't know studios to do that. It sounds like something that you find at like a recording school, like Full Sail. But you come to Patchwork, you can find seminars. There's people doing podcasts. You know, David Banner does his podcast from here. It's a full service spot if you want to create and distribute things to an extent, because we even used to get CDs pressed, you know, from here. Like,
it's all about the business. It's 90% business. So being able to get your complete business done as well as your music done, all in the same place, that's essential. That's what takes you to a whole nother game. When you leave here, you're ready to go. Bam, okay, I got my UPC codes, I got my ISRC codes, we got the mixes done, we got the masters, bam. You got Kenny Mix right here doing all the mastering. So it's like one-stop shop, everything I need to go. I can package. They can even do artwork or facilitate, plugging you with the right people to get your artwork done. Whatever it is, and you leaving with a physical package. Like, it's about taking it one step at a time, and Patchwork allows you to do that as well as walk you through each step that's needed.
Patchwork is a staple in Atlanta. If you've not heard of Patchwork, I don't know how you can say you've been in Atlanta or you live here or you're from here or what have you. Patchwork is, like I said, a movement of the musical culture here in Atlanta. And, you know, if you can say some of the best artists in the world have been here, from Whitney Houston, I remember she was here when I was here, Jeezy, OutKast, Goody Mob, I mean, all the Atlanta greats, you know, the Dungeon Family, the Attic Crew, Parental Advisory, Youngbloods, Jim Crow, like all, Little John, like Little John used to do his mixtapes here in Patchwork at 995, actually. He used to do those first mixtapes at 995, him and Vince. And they used to just go in the studio and do their thing. And here he is today doing Pepsi commercials. I mean, it's pretty incredible. So absolutely, Patchwork has a hand in all of those people's careers, I feel like, because everyone starts from somewhere. And this is not a bad jumping point or starting point for anybody.
There's been a lot of people that have come through here, and I think maybe the customer service and the work ethic that Patchwork has established has been something that they've maintained and gone and done other great things with that work ethic and with that intent to do a good job and be creative and do creative things. I think that that's something Curtis has helped instill in a lot of people, and a lot of people have learned from. And I think it's the reason people keep coming back to Patchwork. It's not, you know, it's part of it has to do with the fact Patchwork has over the years been an anchor point for both hip hop and R&B music in Atlanta. Not only as a good facility and a quality facility, but also as a place that I think you always get consistent service.
I'd never been in here and the vibe wasn't right. From anything, like even the community things he do, even with Taste of Patchwork, all that stuff, the shit has always been dope. It always works. You know what I mean? It always works. It never fails. Damn, that's dope. Patchwork always works and it never fails. That is so fucking dope, man. 25 years of that shit is fucking outstanding, right? And for a black company, it's commendable and it's necessary.
The trap sound, Patchwork is where it was created. It was recorded. You know, we were creating the sound wherever we were creating it at, but where it was recorded was here, which makes Patchwork a part of creating the trap sound. Because right now, to this day, the world is still on trap. Now, Westlake, Abbey Road, Circle House, I don't hear nobody talking about none of these studios pertaining to trap. But if you pull any archive about where Jeezy blew up, Gucci blew up, it all comes back to Patchwork.
And I remember working with Jeezy. Now we seeing Jeezy flags in here. I remember playing, Julia Beverly called me one time to, what they call the other room, 99,000? 995. So, okay, we in 995. Julia Beverly called me, come to Patchwork, I got Rick Ross up here. And this is right after Every Day I'm Hustling. You know what I mean? Like right around that era. And I come up to the studio with a beat CD or whatever. And I played 5 beats. One of the 4th or 5th beats was Here I Am. And the instrumental, and I play that beat, and Rick Ross is just like, whoa, what is that? You know what I mean? And he was like, yo, I got somebody I'm gonna send this to. I was like, for real? He didn't even tell me who he sent it to at first. He sent it to him. I found out it was Avery Storm when he sent it back. Avery Storm sent that hook back probably in like 2 hours. Bro, we play that hook, he turned the volume up. Bro, it's just like magic. Here I am, dollars that I spent on her. It was just, as soon as you heard them first 2 lines, it was just, we out of here. Bro, I was just like, huh?
This is a part of the sound of trap. This board, this room, that room is a part of the sound of trap. So without Patchwork, trap probably still would have hit, but I don't think it would have sounded quite like how it ended up sounding. And I know that sounds, cliche or whatever you want to call it, but as one of the creators of the trap sound, I'm here to say that I think Patchwork was a big part of that sound, because the engineers that worked in this building were A, recording it, and B, mixing it.
Patchwork is a beautiful facility to look at, hands down. One of the most beautiful facilities. I marvel at it every time I walk in, looking at all the plaques, all the accomplishments, looking at this board. I've been to events in here and I've experienced some of the energy here. It's a beautiful thing. One of the things that I know is far more valuable than the cosmetic experience is the infrastructure that gives birth to that, right? And it's the staff, it's the interns, it's it's like a family vibe. You know what I'm saying? And I think that contributes to people wanting to make sure that Patchwork is the greatest studio in the world for engineers who come in or staff who come in and they come work here, on down to the lemonade and the cookies. There's the staff and is just as much as part of Patchwork's history as the studio itself.
It was like a family. I'll say that when I was working on my albums, for Universal, we used to basically sleep here. But those of us who stayed strong, our lives have been transformed in so many ways, And just the people in general, man. Some of the people that I met at Patchwork are still my friends to this day.
Friendship is a reason why this studio has made it, right? And that's really what this is. Patchwork is the friend of the community of Atlanta.
We gave our artists a place where they can feel comfortable enough to bare their souls. And we created a place that they can call home and that they can invite others over and make their creations. We turned this studio business from a hospital or sterile facility or business into a multi-purpose venue where we can do anything. We can shoot movies, we can have birthday parties, we can do yoga, we can do food tastings. We're a full-fledged event facility that can capture great audio and document it with video. And so I think our contribution to our culture is we taught people that it's okay to dream and that you can do it long as you put the hard work behind it.
I think that that's the dope thing about Curtis as a leader. I think that Patchwerk is a true testament to that, to his ingenuity, to his this commitment, to growing, and I think it's dope that, like I said, if I say, yo, this is like college, it's like shit. He leading a lot of different people. There's a lot of people, myself included, that have come up out of here and went on to do other things, so I think that's dope. Now, where's it going? I think that's just only up to where they want to take it. I don't know what his vision is, where he wants to go with it at this point, but I think that it can go wherever he wants to take it for real.
We're 25, we're young, we don't even know what we're doing yet. It's almost like, yeah, we celebrate birthdays, we celebrate each other, and I think what Patchwork's right now, and damn, this is probably taking a turn, but I think that because we are so young as a music culture in Atlanta, there's gonna be a little more time before it reverberates what happened based on this. And in the same way that when you see documentaries about Abbey Road or Sunset Sound, they're like, some of those studios don't exist. It's like, you kind of don't want to celebrate too early. Like, it's still a game to be played. So I don't know if people don't notice, because I feel like it's impossible to say people don't notice the impact Patchwork has and the importance that it has in the city. Like, I don't know if you can talk to any artist in Atlanta who's made any impact who won't tell you how something that they did at Patchwork became something that the world, moved to. So I think the celebration comes after you look back and realize, like, I don't know that Atlanta necessarily gets celebrated in that way yet. I think we celebrate ourselves, but it's gonna take a minute for people to notice how many things happen based on things that happen. And Patchwork is definitely gonna be one of those names that show up in the history of music and culture in Atlanta. Like Gucci, OutKast, T.I., Future, Pee Wee the Long Way, Migos, Youngbloods, Goody Mob, Organized Noise. It's like all of these things, all of these different crews, groups, artists came through here and were able to be comfortable enough to make things that the world loves. So, it's no coincidence in that. Like, that's actually a common denominator.
To me, what I would be most proud of, that it's not only still here, it's thriving. It's not here, limping, and stuff, barely working. Like, sometimes you see places, not just studios, any place of business, you're like, man, why don't you just shut it down? Like, you barely making it. Like, what's the point? Like, the business is still, nothing has changed, as far as the level of clientele, the way it's run, the way, it still looks like it did 20 years ago.
I think one of the things that I take great joy out of is having the opportunity to work on a lot of people's first album. We're blessed to work on the second and third, but the first albums mean so much, man. When you're a brand new artist, you got to work with some credible producers, and your sound got to be on point just for you to get a chance. So the fact that we got to do Sierra's first album, Luda's first album, Jeezy's first album, T.I.'s first album, Akon's first album, Rick Ross, just so little, all these different people, that means a lot to me. We gave them a foundation. And if you go back 25 years later and you play some of these songs, OutKast, Youngbloods, Attic Crew, Shorty Swing My Way, all these records, sonically, they still sound good. And they stood the test of time. And so, that's what we've done. We've been consistent. Like I say, I can respect the fact that, the people before us have been celebrated and are still celebrated, like LaFace Records and So Def and Organized Noise and Rowdy Records and all that stuff. But, I'll put our track record up against anyone from Atlanta. We've been here for 25 years. operating on a high level every single year. And some of those places, although they're great and they had their runs, they may have only been around and been active for 6, 7, 8, 9 years at a time. And we're blessed to still be rolling.
In the next 25 years.
Like I said, historic, like somewhere you can, where the kids can walk through and see the plaques, a museum, you know what I'm saying? Like,
they need that, man. They need that, man. They need to actually, I think, for the next 25 years and more to come, man, all these colleges and schools, man, they need to have contracts with Patchwork and show them kids what really from ground up, you know what I'm saying? Run them through here, man. Let them catch them vibe. Let them catch this spirit that's in here. Let them catch this, man, because there's a lot of energy in here, man.
Yep.
It's energy in here of greatness, man, of great black folks, man.
Yeah, man, you know.
They like Martin Luther King, man. No,
Yeah,
man,
you know,
that's what this is.
Just to walk through and see it, like, it would be like a museum, man. It's something.
And also too, I see Patchwork really, man, being a part of this a record label. You know what I'm saying? Like a record label, management and everything. Cause man, they know the ins and outs. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of people need help out here, man. You know what I'm saying?
Because it's definitely no more artist development.
Cause if I like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking about me first coming in, us first coming in, not really knowing nothing about the business. You know what I'm saying? Man, I just see Patchwork being a help to our community and to our people, man, in every aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Management, black and white, you know what I mean? The engineering part, you know what I'm saying? I just see Patchwork being the industry, man.
We need more black businesses running with ethics, structure, and character. Patchwork.
To me, I think after 25 years, it's about that. It's about legacy. It's about honoring my mother. It's about honoring my family, about honoring Bird, honoring Wino, honoring Curtis, honoring, to its extent, to Bob and BJ, to everybody that went through this journey together. I'll do my part in honoring. I want to honor, and some of it I gotta let sleeping dogs lie. But I do, this is a testament that it can be done. And just think about if we would have done it all righteously, then that even would be that much sweeter. But it's still sweet. It's sweet to be able to walk in here and smile and tell people I love them and I appreciate them. Met you, nigga. We good. Nigga, that's what Patchworks, that's what this shit mean. I mean, legacy. Our parents left the South. Kurt mama from Louisiana, I don't know about his pops. My mama was 19 when she left Louisiana. My daddy from Arkansas. They met in LA. And now we building some shit back in the South, and they ain't running us out. You understand what I'm saying? We built some shit, they ain't running a nigga from nowhere. That's what it mean to me. 25 years of niggas with dreams, nigga. And I'm part of the dream, the fucking foundation of it. Bob could have played football and made $20 million a year, period, for 15, however many years he did it, and didn't have to build this. This is a testament about me and him and Kurt. That's what this is. It's a testament to our dreams together. And it can be done. It shows me it can be done.
The impact of Patchwork over these first 25 years, I'm not gonna say the last 25, is, you know, in my mind, I always say it's like BP and AP. So there's before Patchwork and there's after Patchwork. Before Patchwork, there weren't, you know, me and Bob, Mike's white, but me and Bob were black. So when we started, we noticed that there weren't a lot of black guys on the technical side of the studio business. And I'm a firm believer in seeing something, either mentally thinking something, physically seeing it to confirm it, and then that giving you hope or reality that you can do it. I've known how many people we've influenced to be like, I don't even think that this was a business that people was thinking about getting into. But when they looked up and saw two 23 and 4-year-old black dudes doing it, they thought that they can do it. I always say, like, you don't see, you know, black people out making cars because they don't have an inspiration. They don't see other people doing it. They just think it's something that's unattainable. So by us doing what we did, I know that we motivated and sparked a lot of young black people to believe that they can do a studio because they saw us doing it. And then, you know, we've changed the culture of Atlanta because prior to us being in a preeminent position, Atlanta was really clicked out, and Atlanta, at least in the studio world, wasn't sharing information. And, you know, we changed that. I was a big believer that if we knew something and we shared the information, it made Atlanta better, not just us better.
It's a good thing that it's able to stand the test of time and, you know, live out to help everybody else. It's a good place for young people to start their careers off. There were so many superstars that came through here that weren't superstars when they came through here. So it was one of the things that we really enjoyed about being in this type of industry and this type of clientele in Atlanta is that everybody comes in here with big dreams and big ambitions. And that's what brought me into Atlanta. That's what brought Curtis to Atlanta. It was the dreams and ambitions of doing something that not only would be positive, but can, like I say, last a long time, you know. And I think Patchwerk has done a great service to the city of Atlanta, letting guys really explore their talent and really shine. And there's so many just successful artists that just started out sleeping on the couches, you know, whether it's this studio on Hemphill or it's the original one on McMillan. There's just so many guys that just T.I. before he was even T.I., you know, he came to the studio. Rico Wade, OutKast, Goody Mob, they all came through, and they, to this day, they still like brothers. So it's one of the good things, a good community that was created in Atlanta with this music scene, and Patchwerk was a big part of it.
Cool. But I wanted to talk about the contest, NFL thing, but that was great.
All right, because I knew I had to do that over too. But all right, let's talk about NFL. All
right, action.
Yeah.
Sonically superior.